Hello internet friends. It's me, Beatrice, back with the juicy stuff straight out of Reddit. Today I will be reading the best stories of Reddit from the past month. Sit back and enjoy. If you enjoy the stories, don't forget to tap the like button and subscribe. Press the bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. Now on to the stories. Posted by Mindless Note 3735. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my friend she is reaping what she sowed? At the beginning of quarantine, my friend Bella, female 30, proposed open marriage to her husband Mike, male 28. The timing was off, obviously, but she had thought about it a lot and she said it was the only way for her relationship with Mike to survive because she loved him dearly but felt unfulfilled. Mike hesitantly agreed because he didn't want to lose her. When I asked him about it, he seemed very much not thrilled about the whole thing. Backstory here is that Bella and Mike have known each other since middle school but only started dating in college, at which point Bella had a lot more experience in relationships. Mike has told me he's always felt like he was one step behind her in most things, but that their marriage really worked and he was very happy with her. Well, during quarantine, the two of them became even close than they had ever been before, and I think Mike didn't expect Bella to actually go through with the open relationship idea she had proposed. But around 3 months ago, she brought it back up and then settled on some rules together. Cut forward to an hour ago when Bella calls me crying saying Mike cheated on her. I'm all question marks at that point because Mike would never. She tells me she tried calling Mike all day but he said he had a date and hasn't come home yet. I asked her, but wasn't that sort of okay between you two? She sobbingly tells me that yes, that was sort of the deal, but that she hadn't been able to go on a single date with a guy yet because she was so busy with work being back on now, and that Mike just went ahead with his date as if she meant nothing, that he hadn't disclosed any details to her. Which, as far as I know, was part of their deal, that they didn't want to know any details. And that she felt like he was ridiculing her. I didn't really know what to say and just told her, well, honey, I think you just reaped what you sowed, honestly. She's furious with me and screamed at me for being an awful friend to her, that I should understand how she feels. I kept quiet, but honestly, I think she's just upset that her husband is doing what she proposed in the first place. I haven't talked to Mike yet, but am I the a-hole? Edit, spoke with Mike just now. He said he had an awesome night but came home to Bella screaming at him and is feeling incredibly guilty and confused now. He'll come by afterward to talk. Down in the comments, Windy Afternoon says, yeah, not the a-hole. People always seem to be down for open relationships until they remember their partner can have an open relationship too. Natasha Nails says, not the a-hole. She didn't expect him to actually sleep with other people. She just wanted to sleep with others without it being considered cheating. She's really ridiculous and I'm on Mike's side for this one. She wanted an open relationship, so that's what she got, lol. Further down in the comments, infamous Wasabi 9007 says, be careful what you ask for. You might well get it. Your friend felt unfulfilled and wanted someone to meet her needs. She never considered that in an open marriage, both spouses are free to go elsewhere. She said he cheated, but he did no such thing. It isn't cheating in an open marriage. Your friend's reality check just bounced. Not the a-hole. On to the next story. Posted by Brent 17000. Titled, Am I the a-hole for walking out of a house after the host told me to feel free to leave because she doesn't like people in her house? This just happened like an hour ago. Backstory, dating this guy and his best friend was having a small party, if you can call it that. There were 10 people there at most. I wasn't invited, but my boyfriend told me it would be okay if I came. Usually, I wouldn't go somewhere without an invite, but since this is his best friend's house, I assumed that he knew the situation better than me. I show up, go inside, meet the best friend, and she didn't know I was coming. Boyfriend says, hey, this who I told you about. I wanted you guys to meet. The best friend turns to me with a straight face and says, yeah, it's alright I guess, but feel free to leave because I don't really like people in my house. So I left. I turned around and walked out without saying another word. Now, to be completely fair, my boyfriend was shocked. He came after me and said that he had no idea that she would react that way, but she was just having a bad night and that we should go back in and everything will be okay. Obviously, I left. He didn't come with me. But now he is texting me and saying that while she was a bit rude, I was even more rude for just walking out in front of everyone and that it made for a weird vibe with all of his other friends who were there. So am I the a-hole? Did I overreact? Edit, I should mention. There is a language barrier here. She speaks Greek and Italian as first languages and I English. So honestly, her intent was questionable. But the look on her face gave me a weird vibe. Edit 2, interesting conversation below. Does boyfriend have the right to invite someone into someone else's home? This is a tough one because it's sometimes yes, and sometimes no. I've done this before if the vibe was right. But mostly, I don't do it. I would just ask first. So I kind of understand if he thought it was a situation where it would be okay. But turned out not to be okay. Conflicted. Down in the comments, 4th X to follow the rule says, not the a-hole. And if I was dating him and he decided to return back to the party after that interaction, I wouldn't be dating him any longer. Maleficent at 3958 says, not the a-hole. No, he did you a wrong by sending into a place you were not invited, had the host insult you and then gets mad you leave. No, do not apologize. What the hell is he complaining about? He still stayed for the party while you ended up going home. Further down in the comments, the best Peter says, not the a-hole. That was a very reasonable reaction after being treated that way. Much more polite than I would have been. My only confusion is why you didn't immediately dump the BF for going back into the party and you're waiting until a bit later to do that for some reason. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Now on to the next story. Posted by Prego Woman H8TR. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving up my bed to a pregnant woman? My grandma is on her last days and wished to see all her grandkids for the last time, so my family came up with a plan to visit her. We're all adults in our 20s, and didn't want to deal with the airport chaos, so we decided to drive Los Angeles, California to Durango, Colorado. We rented an 8-seat van since it was 6 of us in total including me, female, 22. My 2 brothers and their wives, and my cousin. The day of the trip we find out one of my sister-in-laws, Anna, invited her sister, Ruby, to come along since she wanted to get out of the house and because we had extra space. Everyone was okay with it, but I was a little annoyed since I wanted my cousin with cerebral palsy to ride more comfortably, but it seemed like he was fine with it so I didn't worry. I drove the first 7 hours of the trip. We had already booked 2 rooms with 2 queen beds each in advance. One room was dedicated for my 2 brothers and their wives, and the other for my cousin and I. When we were heading to check into our rooms, Ruby asked Anna what size bed would she be getting since she moved around a lot because of the baby. Yeah, she mentioned a few hours into the trip that she was pregnant. Anyways, Anna said she would be sleeping with my cousin and I. I was frustrated because she didn't pay for the room. Anna offered her to sleep in my room, not hers, and she never even asked me. Whatever, this lady is pregnant and I was tired and just wanted to sleep. We get into the room and Ruby immediately asks me where I was sleeping. I stayed quiet but then laughed because I thought she was joking. I explained to her that we were sharing the bed since my cousin with cerebral palsy needs his own bed. She said Anna told her she would be getting this bed and she needs to have her own bed because she's pregnant. I told her no, we are sharing this bed. She quickly became upset and called her sister to come talk to me. Anna of course sided with her sister. I was furious at this point. I drove 7 hours and I just wanted to sleep. I told her she could sleep with me in the bed I paid for. Eventually, everyone from the other room comes over and there's an entire argument among us with everyone taking sides. I was told I was being selfish because Ruby is pregnant. I'm sorry, but I offered her to sleep with me, not to kick me out of my own bed. I will fight everyone before I sleep on a floor or a hotel room I paid for. Eventually, I just laid down on one side of the bed and did not move. They tried to wake me up so I could move, but I wouldn't budge. I just laid there until they left to their room. Eventually, Ruby laid down on the other side of the bed and we all woke to the next day. There's tension among us even though we're all back in California now. Anna, her husband, and Ruby think I'm a selfish person for not giving up my bed to a pregnant woman. On the other hand, my other brother and his wife, as well as my cousin, side with me. Even though I do feel bad, I still offered Ruby a space. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Dangerfield says, not the a-hole. So Anna last minute invites her pregnant sister, who in no way is contributing to this journey, to go with you all on an emotional trip to see someone who has no relationship with. She should have paid for a room if this was such a big deal, or, not treated it like a holiday for her sister on the backs of things others have done. Luxstrict 6000 says, coming from a pregnant lady, NTA. What is her problem? Who goes to visit your sister's in-law's dying grandmother because they want to get out of the house? Like it's not a vacation, lady. Further down in the comments, Veridical Perception says, not the a-hole. If someone needed to give up a bed for the pregnant woman, it should be the person who invited said pregnant woman to go on a road trip uninvited and without having to pay for accommodations. I don't see any of the others who demanded that you give up the bed willingly give up theirs. It's easy to tell other people to sacrifice if you aren't willing to do it yourself. If she wanted a room and a single bed, she could have paid for one, like the rest of you did. Obviously, if no plans were made for her to come, she's not going to have first-class accommodations. Being pregnant is never an excuse for entitlement and expecting other to sacrifice for you. Posted by Throwaway987657. Titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my sister's husband useless? My 17 female, sister 34 female called me saying that her work had an emergency and she needs to get there ASAP and needed me to watch her kids because no one else can. I rushed over there just to find her husband locked in his game room playing video games. I asked her why she called me over if he was home and she said he didn't want to babysit because it was his only day off. Sister left, and I started hanging with the kids. I was changing the baby's diaper and the other kids wanted a snack. I told them to go ask their dad to make them a snack since the baby had a blowout and it was going to take me a while to clean him up. Well, their dad sent them back upstairs and told them to ask me again. After cleaning the baby up, I made the kids a snack and their dad came out to eat and told me not to let the kids interrupt him on his day off. By the way, he works part-time from home, 6 days a week. I kind of snapped at him and told him it was my day off too and that he's a useless effing father and husband if his wife has to rely on her teenage sister rather than her own husband. He started telling me I was disrespectful and didn't understand how hard parenting is, and I told him he clearly doesn't understand how hard it is either since he considers parenting his own children babysitting. He ended up kicking me out and apparently my sister was forced to come home because he told her she needed to figure it out since I'm her sister. I feel like I may be the asshole because my sister is mad at me, her husband is mad at me, my mom is mad at me for causing drama, but my dad thinks it's funny and agrees with me. I definitely didn't need to call him names, but I just hate this guy so much. We have argued about things in the past as well, so we already don't have a great relationship. My sister is saying I need to apologize to him and he is threatening to never let me into the kid's life if I keep disrespecting him. Down in the comments, Fox Unicar Kilo says, hold up. Your sister had to leave work because her husband kicked you out, even though he was literally right there for the kids. Her husband is utterly useless and she needs a reality check. Me, personally, if I showed up just to find out the husband was there but didn't want to babysit his kids, I would have turned right back around. That's not an emergency, that's enabling. Lots of Cash says, watching your own kids is not babysitting. If you're reading this and you say your partner babysits your kids, knock that shit off. Words are impactful. Use them correctly. OP, I love everything about what you did. Don't apologize. Ever. Not the a-hole. Further down in the comments, she's Tammy says, your sister sucks too, OP. She decided to burden you with unnecessary babysitting duties. She didn't stand up for you when you did her family a favor. You snapped only after her partner rudely barked orders at you. You were completely right in what you said and he kicked you out. People might make the case that she's being abused, but it honestly sounds like she's just crappy. If she was at all sorry for how you were treated and wasn't trying to use her children as a bargaining chip, I might feel differently. Stick with your dad on this one. Not the a-hole. On to the next story. Posted by Unhappy Confection 69. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not including my brother's wife with my friend group? To cut a long story short, my brother married a woman I knew from school. She was known as the mean girl, treated everyone like that. Her mom had the same reputation and everyone said it was learned behavior that started because their family was wealthy. She made junior and senior year of high school a nightmare for me and most of my friends with her attitude, not helped by teachers letting her away with it. I didn't see her for years and my brother met her in a coffee shop. They hit it off and it was a surprise when she turned out to be his girlfriend. It was also awkward. I don't like her. She's changed some but she still has a streak of it in her. Better than she was. They got married last year and it hit my brother that she has no friends of her own. She had her family there, but no friends. And so he asked me if I would include her with my friends. He knows I have a solid group of friends and was hoping they would be her friends too. But none of my friends are on board and honestly, neither am I. So I told him no. There was fallout from this. My brother is pissed and we haven't had a great relationship in months. He thinks it's cruel to not try when I know she has no friends, that it's childish to dislike her over the past and that my friends are a group of assholes for not being willing to try. I told him not everyone wants to be friends with the mean girl who made life hell at any point in their life. That sometimes civil is the best you can muster and that I have always been that. It's breaking our parents' hearts because he's insisting we can't be close again unless I make more of an effort. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Weather Lane Jazz says, not the a-hole. Homie, your brother sounds like he's being her dad. Setting up friendships with a siblings' friend group after marriage. Weird. Why not his friends? Edit, added verdict. Scrap Queen says, not the a-hole. There is a reason she has no friends. Your brother married the school bully and wonders why no one wants her around. She is your sister-in-law now and you'll have to include her in family events, but with your friends. No. Has your brother told his wife to try? To apologize? Why is it the bullied ones are supposed to try harder than the bully? Thank you for all the awards. Further down in the comments, Dr. Sparkle says, not the a-hole. If she'd really changed, she wouldn't need her husband to force people to be her friend, and at least have tried to apologize and make amends when your brother and her got serious. While it's reasonable that he wants you and her to be civil at family events, he has absolutely no right to demand that you be friends, let alone demand your friends get on board. On to the next story. Posted by AITA Cancelled Wedding. Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my half of our cancelled wedding? My ex-fiancé and I came from very different cultural backgrounds. Our families live on entirely different continents. I explicitly told him before we even got engaged that I always wanted a small, low-key wedding. I know that his culture has huge, lavish weddings, and he told me that this is what he wants. So when we got engaged, we had a long conversation which resulted in the compromise that we would have a big wedding in his home country but drop some of the other aspects of his culture that I wasn't so comfortable with, or did not mesh well with my own culture, regarding the living situation and raising children. This was not a huge amount of customs. In fact, we just arranged to drop one and alter two so they streamlined better with my own culture. We were both as happy as possible with this outcome. We began making bookings, reservations, and paying deposits for our wedding. This was all out of his bank account. This is because we did not have citizenship in each other's countries, so it was far less complicated for everything to be paid from an account of the same country. The intention was that after we married it would be much easier to get citizenship, and once citizenship was approved we would merge our finances, and at this point, it would not matter who had paid for the wedding, since all our money would be together. 3 weeks before we were married, his mother and aunts got wind of one of the customs we had arranged to alter and lost it. Through conversations they then found out about the other two, and eventually they threatened to disown him for being a bad son. They said I was cutting him off from his family and that if that was what he wanted they would make it easier for him. He begged me to change my mind, but I was firm, saying this is what we decided together. I wasn't going to drop our agreement because his family didn't like it when there are plenty of aspects my own family is uncomfortable with. Relationships are about compromise and communication, and ultimately the first priority is the two people in the relationship, not their family. He told me if I wouldn't budge then the wedding was off. I told I had made my compromise. I still wanted to marry him under our original conditions when we had spent a long time negotiating and originally felt were fair. He said he had changed his mind and did not want to marry me. After a few weeks, he contacted me asking me to pay him back for half the money he was unable to get back from the deposits we paid. Since it was so close to the planned date that we cancelled, it was not a small amount of money. However, since he was the one who called off the wedding, and even at this point, I would still marry him if he were to honor our original agreement, I don't think I am obliged to pay. I told him this and he is very unhappy since he now believes is it my fault that he cancelled for being unwilling to be flexible. AITA for refusing to pay my half of our cancelled wedding? Edit, it's come up a few times that if I were the one cancelling the wedding would I expect him to pay half the cost. I have replied to a few comments, but it's coming up enough that I figure I'd add something to the post. If I had been the one cancelling without his approval, I would have expected to pay the cost alone. If it had been a mutual decision, I would have expected to share the cost. In the context of our relationship, it makes sense for him to take the hit for this. There have been other, albeit less significant, cancellations of events that have been covered by the person who cancelled. For example, I was unable to make our planned engagement shoot and paid the cost for this. He was unable to attend a prepaid dinner event, for which he covered the cost. We've always had a very balanced and understanding financial relationship. Edit 2, I'll copy and paste an earlier comment regarding the traditions my ex-fiancé compromised on. The traditions were regarding my role in the home as a wife and mother, multi-generational households and methods of raising children, and the role of a child in the household. I don't feel comfortable providing more information than this, as I don't wish to give any more evidence towards our nationalities. Also, as a few of you have guessed, English is not my first language. I tried to hide it, but I guess I still have improvements to make. All this is to say that I apologize for any mistakes in my post or comments. Down in the comments, Bosca Bruzier says, "Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry, you must be heartbroken. I know it probably doesn't feel like it now, but you dodged several bullets. He's backing out of this wedding now due to family pressure. This shows you that he was always going to take his family's side in arguments, and best you find out now. Sounds like he would have been one of those spouses who are extremely enmeshed in their parents' clothes, and you would have had mother-in-law and sister-in-law interference all the time. He has shown that he's happy to make agreements with you and compromises and then doesn't respect them. For example, He has zero regards for the agreements you had and the compromises you both made regarding the wedding. He's also now ignoring the agreements about the costs. And as for future kids, that agreement you made was never going to be respected either. I'm so sorry you've had to call off your wedding so close to the date. But much easier and better now to discover how spineless and dishonest he is now, rather than having to go through divorce and custody arguments later on. Not the a-hole. Tika Nick says. Not the a-hole. You didn't cancel the wedding, he did. He cancelled it after he decided to go against the agreement the two of you made. Since his family was in such an uproar that they threatened to disown him, tell him to get his money back from them. They can consider it the cost of getting their precious son back. Further down in the comments, Obsidian Tyne says, "Yep, sounds like his aunts cancelled his marriage, so I'm sure they will be happy to reimburse him. If he'd said that these traditions are important to him and his concept of marriage, and Opie had agreed to them and then cancelled, she would be the a-hole. But this sounds more like him getting most of what he and his family wanted in the initial compromise, then using that compromise as the starting point to keep pushing for more, while accusing Opie of refusing to compromise. He'd make a great trashy politician. Not the a-hole." Posted by Jamie Doo. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my stepdad and mom that they shouldn't be surprised at what my little brother said to them when they pulled a prank on him? I 20 female am an older sister to my little brother 17 male who finished high school last year. My little brother and I are really close. He says I'm the best friend he has and he loves me more than anyone. Of course, this is not true, he has many friends of his own. My brother has been asking our stepdad and mother if he could get a new car for his grad party since last year, and he said he'd pay 50 to 75% with his own hard-earned money while they paid the rest. They said no. I have a car but I had been working for one, they helped me pay off for it. So my brother's arguments with our parents got heated after a while. But he continued to press our parents all of last year until they gave in and said yes like they did for me. Note that our stepdad and my brother have a negative relationship for the most part. Our bio mother and stepdad got together soon after our bio dad and mom divorced when we were little. My brother thinks that stepdad and mother were seeing each other before our real parents divorced, and to be honest, I think that might be true. Not certain, though. Anyway, my stepdad, mother and brother compromised and said they'd get him the car in 2021 so that people don't gawk at him at the graduation party. June this year my brother and stepdad and mother are still on about the car, now the arguments getting loud and lasting hours until evening. My stepdad was getting into screaming matches with my brother over it, but they reached a final compromise of the car being bought last week. The fated morning comes and my brother wakes up to our stepdad and mom guiding him outside to a car. But not his, our mother's. Stepdad used his and my brother's money on a dumb prank, bought a completely different model of car and said it was for our mother. Our mom and stepdad just laughed and kissed each other. My brother didn't lose it, he didn't even look angry. He just looked dead in our stepdad's eyes and said, and I'm not joking, verbatim, "You might think I'm effing stupid, you might think whatever. But I'm just better than you, bro. You know that, I know that, and our mom is an effing idiot for staying with a prick like you. But I'll make you wish you'd never fucking met us. I promise you. You might be laughing now, but you'll be crying later." He then walked off, not even looking back at them as they stared horrified. They asked me what was that about, and I, feeling terrible for my brother, said they had it coming and not to be surprised. So now they grounded both of us. I've had to explain the situation to my friends as I can't see them anymore, but I feel so bad for my baby brother and they back me up on this and ask me to comfort him as much as possible. But our parents are so mad, and they can't see that my brother had his heart crushed. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Malachite Macchiato says, "Not the a-hole. Your brother is a better person than I am because I would be blasting stepdad and mother everywhere. I'd call the local news stations and ask if they are interested in a story of parents stealing from their child. I'd tell family, friends, people at church, random strangers on the street, post about it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, make a YouTube video, everything. Your mother is the worst for letting someone do this to her child. I want to say so many things that would get me permanently banned. Edit, thank you all for the awards. Indignant Loris says, I don't understand how they think they can ground a 17-year-old, never mind a 20-year-old. Pranks are mean. They're an atrocious form of humor. More bullying than humor, really. Your brother's money was stolen. He should make a report to the police. Not the a-hole. Further down in the comments, Opie says, thank you, everyone. All the insights mean a lot. I'm working on talking to my brother about a potential legal action like a lawsuit to get the expenses back from our stepfather. My bio dad is generally nice and loving to us. I think he barely tolerates our stepdad and his ex-wife, our mother. He'll take us back in full time if the law allows it. If not, my brother and I will move in together to our own place. Right now, I'm trying to be there for my little brother as much as possible. Lots of cuddles and free food, but he won't stop bawling his eyes out. I'm worried psychological harm has been done to him. Now on to the next story. Posted by Cola Nova. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling the truth to my therapist? I 17 female just might have landed my mom 38 female some legal trouble and I feel terrible for it. Long story short, I fell in a saw yesterday and swallowed saw water by accident, and in order to avoid getting sick, my mom gave me alcohol and I got very drunk. Soon after, my mom, dad 50 male, my little sister R 15 female and little brother J 9 male all agreed that after dinner R and J would help me with the dishes while my dad would go out and get dessert. But before my dad left, I confronted my mom about how drunk I felt. I told her that it was hard for me to think straight and I felt wobbly as a bouncy ball. She dismissed me and told me to sit down. Now at this point, R and J can tell I'm drunk and think it's hilarious and won't stop laughing. And it's when I try to stand up again that I realize that my mom left along with my dad and I was left alone to take care of my little brother and severely mentally and physically disabled sister, all by myself, completely wasted. I have no idea how to handle myself in this state of mind, let alone two emboldened little kids teasing me. It took me several attempts just to get off the couch because I kept falling down so much. I tried to clean the kitchen, but I couldn't get much done on account of trying to deal with my drunk S and J and RS teasing. Suffice to say, this was a very difficult experience. 30 minutes later, my parents arrived home and went upstairs. At this point, I'm starting to sober up a bit and the first thing I do is start sobbing. How could my mom just leave me like that? She expected me not only to deal with that on my own but to also be in charge of two minors while doing so. I felt so betrayed and alone. My mom hears me sobbing and I come up to talk to her and tell her why I'm crying. She was immediately remorseful, but at first dismissive. But then my dad comes out of his room and tells me I'm overreacting and not drunk but just hamming it up and sends me to bed. My mom woke me up this morning and we were actually able to talk things out. I told her how bad that made me all feel and she just listened to me and took full responsibility for it. However, just a few hours ago I had a therapy appointment and I thought it was appropriate to bring this up as I often feel like I am given responsibility I have no idea how to handle. But therapists are mandated reporters, and what I told her she thought were grounds for child neglect. She reported the incident to CPS. I feel terrible that it went that far and my mom felt terrible for letting the incident happen in the first place. But my dad thinks I have completely overblown this situation. He is blaming me for the possible legal damages I could be causing my mom. He even wants me to call back my therapist and tell her that I was lying. I think I might be the asshole for putting my mom in legal jeopardy, but at the same time, I don't think I'm fully responsible for this. So am I the a-hole for telling the truth to my therapist? Down in the comments, Edda Valkyrie says, "Oh my god, not the a-hole. And please try to go to the hospital. You drank saw water. Getting drunk isn't going to do anything to help keep you from being ill." Saltiest Teacher says, "Not the a-hole, and also please go to the hospital." I read your comment that alcohol is an antibiotic, and that's not the case. It's antiseptic and only in high percentages. You would have had to drink a very high percentage of alcohol and drink blackout drunk to alcohol poisoning worth amounts of it to do anything. To the situation at hand, I as a teacher am a mandated reporter, and your therapist did the right thing as well as you for telling them. You were in a dangerous situation with the saw water. You weren't taken to the hospital. You were given alcohol as a minor. You were left alone to care for other minors while inebriated. You were dismissed when you voiced your concern about your health. Several of those things alone would have caused me to call CPS. Further down in the comments, Pixels4524 says, "Not the a-hole. What they did was incredibly irresponsible. Part of life is facing consequences for your mistakes, even when you have taken responsibility for them. You were in danger, and so were your siblings. This is how the system is set up, to protect children. The fact that this is happening means the system is working. If this is a standalone incident, then your mum will get a slap on the wrist and nothing more. If similar things happen a lot, then you'll be kept safe." Now on to the next story. Posted by Outrageous Mine. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for being shocked that my friend will get married before me? I have this friend, let's call her Jane. We're in our mid-30s now, but we were roommates since freshman year in college. She's one of my closest friends, and I know her super well. And I know that for all of her 20s, she had horrendous luck with her love life and was extremely insecure about it. She always wanted to get married and have kids, and kept ending up with douchebags who would cheat on her, or men who straight up didn't like her and crying about it, and I was always there for her through it and reassuring her how she won't die alone. But her love life kinda became a punchline in our group of friends, and sometimes she'd go along with it, especially once she got into her 30s and was still single. She'd say like, 'Haha, yeah guys, we all know I'm gonna die alone' all the time, and I know she was torn up about it, but we were always reassuring her that it's not the case, and she was in therapy about it. Anyways, about a year ago she finally met an incredible man, and they fell in love almost instantly. He proposed to her last week, and she's just completely over the moon. I've never seen her this happy. This weekend we all went out to celebrate, and all our friends were saying how we're so happy for her after a long and difficult road, and it was really emotional. For context, I'm still single, no boyfriend, and I want to get married too, and so I said, I can't believe Jane will get married before me." She started crying and stormed out, and the evening was completely spoiled. I tried calling her this weekend, but she was hysterical and said that I didn't have to point out that she's so unlovable, and it's a miracle she tricked someone into proposing. It's quite sad, but that's not what I meant. That's her own baggage. I apologized, but also suggested she should talk to her therapist about that reaction, and now she completely refuses to speak to me and won't answer my messages. A couple of others in our friend group are on her side, while some have said that she's overreacting and will come around. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Thorny Roses says, "Wow, Major, you're the a-hole here. Sounds like there's some jealousy going on here that Jane is getting married while you are still single. Her love life should have never been a punchline. You and your friends 100% contributed to her insecurities. Who the hell responds to a proposal like this? Wouldn't be surprised if Jane cut you off altogether." B. Cello says, "Yes, you're the a-hole OP, and you are also jealous and petty. This girl is supposed to be one of your best friends. She has been in therapy over this issue, and when she finally finds happiness, you make a very cruel and insensitive joke. You may have been trying to be funny, but in her eyes, you are basically saying it's surprising she got married, which means something is wrong with her, etc. Not exactly a fun thing to bring up at her celebration party." Further down in the comments, Dark Rogus says, "You are the a-hole. Instead of being happy for your friend who is getting married to an incredible man, you decided to make a snarky remark due to your insecurities at a time that should have been a celebration of her engagement. Even in this post, you're still putting her down by saying it's quite sad. She should talk to her therapist, etc., and trying to build yourself up as the strong person instead of the incredibly jealous person that your unlovable friend found someone before you. Now on to the next story. Posted by Shazy. Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit my kid's half-sibling? 2 years ago I found out my ex cheated. He was trying to win me back after I kicked him out but stopped when he found out his other woman was pregnant. They got married and now have a daughter together who just turned 1. Ex and I have 2 kids together, 14 male and 13 female. The kids are primarily with me because ex lives 3 hours from the kids' school. They see him every other weekend, extended weeks in summer and alternating holidays. He and I are civil around the kids, but I ignore any and all communication with him outside of that, and he has tried to communicate with me. So has his wife, but I ignore her completely and I refuse any communication with her after she called me a C-word for saying no to sharing Mother's Day with her the first year of their relationship being official. The kids know Dad cheated because of their ages and the fact he left our home and moved in with her within a couple of weeks. I told them they don't need to hate Dad for me, and put them in therapy, but they have a very strained relationship with him because of his actions. Our breakup has been so hard on them and I feel horrible that I can't make it better for them. I say all this to provide context for the situation. Ex sent me a text Sunday afternoon asking me to watch his daughter overnight because he and his wife had a family emergency they needed to deal with and the babysitter didn't pick up. I sent a simple reply of no and didn't respond after that. Turns out her father was dying in the hospital and ex wasn't there with her because the hospital doesn't allow visitors under 16 since COVID. He has blown up my phone every day since. I'm still ignoring it. Part of me questions if I was the a-hole though. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Performer Kitchen 780 says, Not the a-hole. She's not your kid, and their situation isn't your problem. Sounds like a horrible thing to say, but it's the truth. Banging a Big Theory says, Not the a-hole. You're 3 hours away? What the F? They don't have anyone neither of them cheated on within 3 hours? The effing balls on this guy. And her sharing Mother's Day, I'm just going to assume she knew he was married during the affair, not that it'd make a difference on your answer. Just the absolute balls on these people. I can't even believe it. Further down in the comments, Natasha Nails says, Not the a-hole. You have no obligation to babysit his child. It's weird that they would even ask you that. Especially since you live 3 hours away. Does the new wife not have friends or family? Or a nice neighbor? Posted by Buzzy Lovebees Buzz. Titled, Am I the a-hole for wanting to keep my bees even though my new neighbor's son is highly allergic to them? I have been keeping bees as a hobby for 6 years now. I have 4 hives in my suburban backyard along with a large garden. My hives are all properly registered and are legal to keep in my town as of right now. The problem is that my new neighbors have asked me to get rid of my bees. They purchased the house and moved in over the winter and hadn't noticed my girls until this spring. Apparently their son is highly allergic to bee stings. He has been hospitalized more than once and has to carry an EpiPen. They asked nicely but seemed a little upset when I said I don't think I could do that. They didn't push the issue with me further, but I saw a rant on Nextdoor that I am sure was written by them. Sometime after that, some of the bee-hating Nextdoor people went to our town board and tried to get beekeeping outlawed in our town. Luckily it didn't pass, and they had mentioned in the minutes that current beekeepers would have to be grandfathered in if it did. Because of that, I am even more wary of giving it up in case they do bring this legislation up again. If I have active hives, I can keep them. My neighbors and I aren't really on speaking terms now. Am I the a-hole for wanting to keep doing my hobby? Edit. Thank you for your input, everyone. Since many have suggested this, I do already have security cameras in place, all around my house and pointing directly at the hives. You cannot access the hives without spending significant amount of time on video. The hives are also behind locked fences. I just purchased a sign to put on the bees gate that says this area is under video surveillance and will be affixing that to their gate ASAP. Edit 2. Sorry to see we couldn't play nice and this thread got locked. Also thanks for the death threats in my DM LOL. But it looks like the overall consensus is not the a-hole. So thanks for helping to put my mind at rest about this. Well, after sleeping on it and spending the morning making a few legal calls, the bees are staying. I just can't take the financial blow on this one. I have spent thousands on my yard. It provides a nice side income and I just can't do it. I have all my legal ducks in a row, with my setup, carrying the proper insurance, and following all the state and local laws. I shouldn't have much to worry about legal issues as long as I keep doing it the way I have been. I will reach out to my neighbors with an olive branch and some suggestions to keep their kid safe. Many people have asked how I would feel if something happened to the kid. And sure, I would feel bad about it. It would be tragic. Also, me bees have always been legally permitted and registered. Down in the comments, Dreaded BD says, not the a-hole. It wasn't unreasonable of them to ask, nor were they the assholes until they started a rant on Nextdoor and tried to legislate against your pets. You were there first. You didn't move your hives, just winterized them. They were still in your yard. Plenty of people are allergic to bees, and they go about their activities with caution and an EpiPen. Music Lover 273 says, I want to be clear that this is not your fault. Beekeeping is a good hobby, one that helps us all out. Buying a home next to you isn't theirs, either, unless there was some sign that you had bees on your property. This is just a series of unfortunate circumstances. I can't really call them the a-hole when their son could be hospitalized or worse. That's terrifying. I can't exactly tell you all to move. Therefore, I will say no a-holes here. Further down in the comments, Myth Puppy says, you're the a-hole. I understand that you love your bees, but man, that kid's never gonna be able to leave his house without fear of hospitalization, and I'd put money on his parents requiring supervision to enter his own backyard. Sucks for him. Also, just because you're legally in the right doesn't mean you're morally in the right. On to the next story. Posted by Something Kinda Random. Titled, Am I the a-hole for uninviting my maid of honor's boyfriend to our wedding? My 28 female maid of honor 30 female, took my daughter 11 female, her daughter 12 female, and her boyfriend 39 male to a co-worker get-together at a beach park. Maid of honor and her BF got extremely drunk and drove with the kids in the car. My daughter called me crying, told me she was scared, and asked me to pick her up. After leaving the park, maid of honor had driven on the sidewalk, blew past a stop sign, and while all this was happening her BF was laughing and playing music super loud in the car. At one point the BF looked back and asked the kids why they were crying, but didn't show any concern for them whatsoever. The maid of honor missed the freeway on-ramp, which is when the BF started yelling at her. Maid of honor argues back and they end up in a parking lot. They continue to argue and my daughter exits the vehicle and takes her friend with her. On our way to pick up the kids, maid of honor's BF calls me and says, maid of honor is getting a DUI, come pick up your effing kid, I don't know where the kids are, F you. After picking up the kids and making sure they're okay, my fiancé and mom decide to go over and help maid of honor. When they go over there, maid of honor is sitting on the ground near her car surrounded by cops and her BF is yelling at her. My fiancé says, can you just go away, and then maid of honor's BF starts yelling at him. My friend somehow didn't get a DUI, and my fiancé drives her car back to our house. During the drive, she is continually asking the same questions and saying the same thing. Why did they keep asking about the kids? I don't understand, nothing actually happened. My fiancé is pissed, says maid of honor's BF isn't welcome here and isn't welcome at our wedding, and tells maid of honor that she should leave him. The next day my friend apologized and then quickly changed the conversation about how she didn't like what my fiancé said and he can't tell her what to do. The worst part is, there is no conversation about the kids or their safety, which is a big deal to my fiancé and is one of his biggest reasons for not wanting the maid of honor's BF there. He never cared about the kids once. I support my fiancé in not wanting him at the wedding. My maid of honor said that if he can't go to the wedding she won't be attending either. Our wedding is a month away. Am I the a-hole for disinviting my maid of honor's boyfriend? I know inviting someone to a wedding and excluding their SO is typically an a-hole thing to do, so we may be the a-hole for disinviting him and not the both of them. For context, they've been together for almost 3 years and live together. Edit. There was a bit more that happened between my fiancé and maid of honor's BF and that resulted in him being uninvited from the wedding on the spot when we got back to our home. When it happened I was in shock, numb and in disbelief. She was still wasted when we got back and decided it was pointless to try to talk to her about anything in that moment. I've known her since I was 13, she's like family, and when I let my daughter go with her that day I didn't think she would ever do something like this. After the event happened about a week ago, we went on vacation and we didn't speak to each other until the other day. I wrote this post because not only was ex-maid of honor downplaying what happened and shifting the focus to being mad at my fiancé, family and other friends were trying to talk to me about just letting her BF attend the wedding instead of focusing on what she did, and I needed a sanity check. She is not maid of honor anymore, and after everything that happened I don't think she's a friend either. I should have uninvited her on the spot as well, and feel stupid for not doing so. Down in the comments, Goth Penguin says, "You're the a-hole for not removing the maid of honor as well. Anyone who is willing to risk your daughter's safety shouldn't be in your wedding or your life." Highwood Shady says, "Why are you excusing her behavior? Your maid of honor was driving. Sorry, driving drunk with or without children in the car is a hill I will willing die on. She drove the car and you're giving her a pass, shame on you." Further down in the comments, Puppy Pavilion says, "You're the a-hole for glossing over the fact that the maid of honor drove drunk with your child in the car. For whatever reason you're focused on the BF, which baffles me to no end. Your friend drove on a sidewalk because she was so drunk, and your daughter was terrified and crying. What's wrong with you? Maid of honor should be kicked out of your life forever, which solves the BF problem." On to the next story. Posted by AITA4 Medical. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my daughter get a surgery? Throwaway because some of my family use Reddit." Hi, all. I, female 30, have been dealing with chronic medical issues all my life. I married my husband, L33, a few years ago and had my daughter A5 soon after. When I was pregnant with A, I was warned that it would be difficult due to my issues and that she would likely have some passed on from me. I accepted this, and I expected it. She was delivered and was a beautiful baby girl who didn't have my issues at the time. However, as she got older, it became more apparent that she inherited my medical problems. One of which has an optional surgery that could negate it entirely. It's possible to live with it instead of choosing to operate, but the surgery will eliminate it. I have some trauma with hospitals in general. I've had to be in and out of them my entire life, and it's left some deep wounds. It's awful to spend your formative years stuck in a sterile room with and in pain. I've spent some time in therapy for it, but I still hate them. The surgery that would remove the problem is covered by insurance, so money isn't a problem. However, it has a long recovery period, and I don't want my daughter to have to suffer through that. I've told Elle that I don't want her to have to go through the lengthy process of recovery. He disagrees and has asked my family members to knock some sense into me. His words, not mine. It's become a big point of contention between us, and I refuse to budge. So, am I the a-hole? Edit, for those who want to know, she has radioulnar synostosis in both arms. She'd have to spend weeks in casts with both arms. Edit 2, you are right. I was letting my own fear cloud my judgment. Thank you. Although, a bit rude to say that I should get sterilized, no? Edit 3, while I understand that I was undoubtedly the a-hole here, it's disgusting how many people have written horrible comments, sent messages, and just been total jerks. You do not know me. I don't know you. This is one moment in your life, and I sincerely don't understand why you have to be so nasty about it. No, I will not sterilize myself. I will not kill myself, give up my child, or divorce my husband. I will not categorize myself as an abusive narcissistic sadist who hates my child and wants her to suffer like I have. I don't appreciate being psychoanalyzed by armchair editors. To those who have respectfully put down their points, sent me kind messages, or just been supportive, I appreciate you all. Down in the comments, Rangila Ree says, "You're the a-hole, you decided to have a baby when you knew that this would or could happen. You want her to live with it because of your trauma. Yeah, you're the a-hole. You also should have thought about this before having biological children. God knows how long you will let your kids suffer because of your trauma. Also, don't have another child if you are going to treat them like this." Edit, wow, this blew up, thanks for the awards. OP, glad you realized that the surgery is better for your daughter and I hope you work through your own trauma. Millimeter 172 says, "You're the a-hole. She may have inherited your medical condition. She did not inherit your feelings about hospitals, and in no way, shape, or form is it okay for you to insist that she suffer unnecessarily because she might not enjoy what the recovery process entails." Further down in the comments, Mulberry says, "You're the a-hole. Why would you want your child to suffer through their entire life with a medical problem that can be easily resolved by surgery? Sure, the recovery period is long, but it will alleviate her from having to deal with the problem for her entire life. I'm a parent too, and if I could get my child a surgery rather than have them suffer with a condition for their whole lives, I would definitely go with the surgery. I understand you have some trauma with hospitals, but this isn't about you, this is about your daughter and her overall quality of life." Edit, my comment was made prior to the OP releasing the information on the daughter's diagnosis. While I do understand the hesitation involved, I also believe that this is something the ARPS family should be talking to an osteopathic surgeon about. Now on to the next story. Posted by Icy Reference. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for not making vegan food for my sister's surprise guest?" So I cooked dinner for the family today and my sister had a guest over. I was told to make whatever I wanted for the family. My parents, myself, my brother and my sister. The food I made was roast beef and mashed potatoes for a Sunday night. At dinner time, my sister brought a surprise guest over for dinner. I had no idea, and I also had no idea that she was a vegan. My sister ended up making a big fuss that I didn't make vegan food for her surprised guest that I met for the very first time. My parents were a little upset as well. They said, "Go and cook her some food, she must be hungry." Having worked all day on work and feeling tired, I refused. I said, "I'm tired, I don't know any recipes, and I can't just rush a meal." The guest felt a little awkward and my family was a little mad at me. I concluded by saying that I don't know how to make vegan dishes. I am tired from working 9 hours in that day, and if she's that hungry she can use Uber Eats to order what she's comfortable with. Am I the a-hole in this situation? Down in the comments, Status Pattern 7539 says, "Not the a-hole. Your sister can't randomly bring home an extra mouth with a different diet with no warning and expect you to have food for them. No reasonable response from parents either, they were probably embarrassed. If it happens again, I'm sorry no one told us you were coming, I'm sure sister has a plan in place regarding your diet though since she brought you here." Then just stare at sister. Fairy Faye says, "Not the a-hole. Lack of proper planning on your sister's part does not constitute an emergency on yours. Further down in the comments, Love Beach 8 says, "Not the a-hole. Your sister was at fault, not you, and for your parents to demand you to fix something vegan was wrong on so many levels. Unless you used butter, sour cream or milk, the mashed potatoes would have been vegan. Your sister could have opened a can of veggies or microwaved some frozen veggies and baked a potato in the microwave. Geez, they were mean to you." Now on to the next story. Posted by a 10th Dentist. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for scheduling my wedding without first asking my sister?" Obligatory throwaway account since some family members are active on Reddit. I 27 female got engaged in November 2020, but because COVID has had so many things put on pause, we decided to wait until the world started to look semi-normal before picking a date, venue, etc. Earlier this spring we started reaching out to venues and decided on a date in June 2022. We were excited to finally get the ball rolling on this and took engagement photos, printed out save the date cards, and mailed them out a couple of weeks ago. Last weekend I got a call from my younger 22 female sister in tears. She also had a COVID engagement, but after hours, she got engaged in February 2021. She was furious that I had picked a date without first checking with her and that she wanted a June 2022 wedding. Mind you, she never told either myself or our parents about her desired date, and hadn't sent anything formal or informal out. Last night we were at our parents' house for dinner, like we do almost every weekend, and she proceeded to get absolutely hammered. She then screamed at my mother and I about how I was ruining her fairytale wedding and that I'm a conceited bitch for not including her in my planning to make sure we didn't overlap on dates or anything. She confessed that while her and her fiancé were likely to get engaged at some point, my engagement put a lot of pressure on them and said, word for word, that I should have had the decency to ask both of my non-engaged sisters if it was okay for me to get engaged before them. I feel like maybe I am missing some unwritten sister code here that I unknowingly broke. Am I the asshole for getting engaged and not planning my wedding date with my little sister? Down in the comments, Organic Extension says, "Not the a-hole. Are you gonna have to ask permission to have kids or but a house too? Your sister is so ridiculous and self-centered." One Hot Epileptic says, "Not the a-hole. I feel like she is making it up that she wanted June. Do not include her in any of your wedding decisions. She will try to get you to make decisions based on what she wants you to have, in order for her wedding to outshine yours. Honestly, I wouldn't even ask her to be a bridesmaid to avoid other potential drama, but that's just me. Also, you should tell her she could get married in June 2023. What's 1 year? You waited, why can't she? I'm petty lol." Further down in the comments, Unhappy Relations says, "Not the a-hole for picking a wedding date at all. That said, it sounds like you're close with your family and yet didn't run the date by them before you mailed save the dates and started booking things. That seems strange. If it's at all important to you that family can come, it would have made sense to ensure no one had a huge conflict. Not oh I want my wedding that month, it's not fair conflicts, but we already booked a cruise that weekend conflicts." Posted by C142776. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for how I reacted when my husband said he won't be with me when I give birth?" My husband, male 33 and I female 26, are expecting our first baby together. I have a scheduled C-section on Sunday and my husband said he can't be there with me because he has a business trip that he'll be leaving for Saturday evening. He said he couldn't skip the trip even if he tried and claimed that because he missed several work trips in the past 6 months, he's worried he might lose his job if he declined to go. I asked him if he could explain to them that you have a valid reason not to come, but he said his boss doesn't listen and doesn't care. The problem is that this is my first time and like any other woman I wanted my husband to be there with me as support. His excuse was that I have an entire medical team and it's not like this was a natural birth because I will be under anesthesia. He suggested I take my mom or his mom with me, but as a father I expected him to be the first person to want to welcome our son even if he couldn't be in the room. He said if he stayed there wasn't much he was going to do since again, I'll have doctors and nurses taking care of me, but if he goes on this trip then he'll bring home money to support us. But I told him emotional support can never be replaced if my own husband won't be there to provide it for me. He clearly got upset over me continuously bringing this up, and this morning we had an argument where he called me selfish and making him look like a bad husband and dad and accusing him of not caring about meeting his baby when he's trying to support us. I got mad at him for calling me that and mentioned he had no consideration for how I feel about this and acting like my concerns weren't valid. He said he got sick of arguing and got his phone and keys about to leave. Before he left he said I shouldn't worry because I won't die, which was a rude thing to say given that I have my own concerns since this is my first time. He texted me apologizing for what he said but said I kept pressuring him knowing his circumstances. ETA the previous trips he missed were over his friend's wedding, his brother's welcoming party, and his cousin's trip. If he could skip work trips for these reasons then I wonder why his child's birth isn't necessary enough for him to stay. Down in the comments, Audrey B4 says, "Not the a-hole. There's more afoot here. If you were able to schedule your delivery then he had advance notice of the timing and should have the time off already. And if it was last minute, like a vaginal delivery is, his employer knows that it's coming. And you don't need him just for the delivery, but for everything else that goes with it. Getting there, any prep that goes on, the delivery, and after delivery, the first days at home. I usually make a plea for fixing relationships, but this would be a deal breaker for me. If he truly believes delivery and infant care is something you can handle alone then I think I'd call his bluff and change the locks." NOM83 was taken says, "Not the a-hole. Is he curing cancer? POTUS's favorite bodyguard? Flying a shuttle to an asteroid headed for Earth in a last-ditch attempt to drill a hole, embed a nuclear warhead to break it up and hopefully save all of mankind? If his job is nothing like that, he needs to find his spine and a new employer. This is a scheduled C-section so he's known for at least, 1-2 months. It's a major surgery. He should be there and has had plenty of time to stand up for himself and, frankly, start job hunting. This is the kind of scenario that usually puts things in perspective for people. Because the issue isn't just whether or not he's there for the birth of his child, it's a matter of the kind of father he's going to be." Further down in the comments, Kana's Mirror says, "HR manager here jumping in to say that if you are in the US and he has been employed for 1 year, the birth qualifies for FMLA. His job is protected and he is a liar. The real issue here is that he doesn't want to see the birth of his child or support his wife. A life-changing moment. There are big issues here and it's not his job. Not the a-hole." Now on to the next story. Posted by Oplatorai. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for making a scene at the birthday of a friend that outed my sister? My sister was born as a male. We come from a conservative family so my sister had only been out to me. She made a friend in a drama club 2 years ago who is proudly out as a lesbian. She has an LGBTQ activism club. So after a bad family dinner where our family was being all kinds of phobic, she sought comfort with someone she thought she could trust. She came out to her friend Rachel. Rachel promised she was not gonna tell anyone. However, Rachel told a lot of people. She outed my sister at a party by saying that's my friend. She is trans. We also found out she had told her girlfriend and some other of the drama people. No one knew and it spread like wildfire. It came back to our parents and they threatened to kick her out. A few days later I was out with my BF at a restaurant where I run into her at the bathroom. She tried talking to me. I told her I didn't want to talk to a snake like her. She kept cornering me and saying what did I do? No, tell me. What the F, dude? Why is your sister ignoring me? I pushed by her and she was following me. So I turned around and I lost it. I screamed at her how she ruined my sister's life, how her selfish actions made her life dangerous for my sister to live at home. She said that it wasn't her fault that my parents were assholes, and I said that she should be ashamed of herself and she doesn't deserve the title of activist because she is an effing disgrace to the community. She was crying and we left. Later I got a call from her GF giving me grief and that if I wanted to confront her, to not do it in front of her friends at her birthday dinner. I didn't even want to confront her. I blew up when she kept probing me. But at the bathroom, she told me it was her birthday and I got to think if I wasn't out of line. Am I the a-hole? Edit, Jesus Christ. I have received so many messages and comments regarding this. My sister has not transitioned. My parents did not know she is trans. Yes, just because you haven't transitioned does not make you any less of a woman. Please, everyone that made that kind of comments, educate yourself on this matter. Also, don't misgender people. That's just rude and dumb. Small update. Thanks for the feedback. I do agree that I could have handled it better. Not for her but for the bystanders that literally didn't have anything to do with this. I will try to control myself more in the future, LOL. Also, my sister received a DM from the group that Rachel helped moderate. They apologized to her and said that Rachel claimed that my sister had given her permission to help her come out to the community. They basically said that if things got worse they would help her raise money so that she could afford living somewhere till she gets on her feet, and that if she needed help with mental health or so on they would help her find resources. Also, Rachel's name was deleted from the Instagram bio and their website deleted the picture. They have not made any kind of statement, which I think is good, because that would bring even more attention to my sister. Also, this was all greenlit by my sister. Down in the comments, Broad Elderberry says, "Not the a-hole. It is her fault that your parents found out, and that your sister was forced to make decisions in the heat of the moment instead of making them safely on their own terms. She put a member of her own community at risk due to her own flapping gums. If she's crying, it's because she feels appropriate guilt for her carelessness." Salty Nut 99 says, "This. Especially because she's a part of the LGBTQ+ community and wants to brand herself an activist. A real activist wouldn't put you in danger to point out what a good person they are for having a trans friend. She knows her behavior was completely inappropriate and quite frankly disgusting to out someone like that. I'm glad OP's sister has at least one person she can actually count on here." Further down in the comments, Stark Helsing says, "Not the a-hole OP. Could you have handled it better? Yeah, but she was asking for it. She was the one who wanted to know and kept prodding you for an answer. An answer for which you delivered, and she didn't like the truth. If she didn't want her birthday ruined, then she shouldn't have opened those doors. What she did is horrible. She put your sister in harm's way and refuses to accept she effed up. She deserved to be called out. You, however, OP, are an amazing person. Please do everything you can to support your sister. She's going to need everyone she can get. This Rachel can F off. Your parents also suck." Now on to the next story. Posted by AnonBoss9. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for getting rid of an obese worker from my department? Throwaway for obvious reasons." We recently hired a new woman, Tammy. We hired Tammy as a stock fill person, someone who walks around the store stocking shelves, lifting boxes etc. Rare to find one above 3 to 4 kilograms unless it's pet food. It's a physical job. This was laid out in the job ad, interview and employee contract. Please note I am a department manager, not a store manager. On Tammy's first shift she was quite slow, but it didn't strike me as odd because most new people are shy or trying to figure it all out, but about a week later my team complained Tammy was doing significantly less than her share. I started to watch closer to see if this was the case. It was. For every 5 boxes the other staff were doing, Tammy was doing 1. I decided to pull her aside about 3 to 4 weeks of her being in the job to ask her how she was finding it and if she needed any extra training on anything. She said she was fine but that it was a harder job than she anticipated. After talking to my store manager, I offered Tammy an extra paid 15-minute break on top of her 2 other breaks she gets. Tammy has now been working with us for 3 months and she sits for probably 2 hours during her shift doing nothing, just sitting. Tammy is in her 30s and over 300 pounds. It got to the point where no matter what we did, Tammy could not handle the physical requirements of the job. We brought crates closer for less of a walk, added extra breaks and even let her wear leggings so she would be more comfortable, but she still just sits. I have spoken with Tammy about how the jobs aren't getting done and she just says it's not her fault. I ended up speaking to the store manager and requesting that Tammy get moved into a different department that is less physically demanding. Tammy has been transferred to a department in the store that gets about $50 less than my department workers and she is livid. Tammy has called multiple unions and HR to try and get me removed as a manager. A large amount of the older workers have started ganging up on me asking if they are next and have been telling Tammy to pursue legal action. I have 20 staff in my department who are all incredible workers and get the job done. Some have extra requirements and where necessary, I adhere to them. Older people not lifting the heavier boxes, etc. I'm also not considered skinny. I'm not obese, but I'm definitely not the epitome of health. It's not that I am discriminatory, it's not that she is fat that lost her the job, it's the fact that she can't do the job. Am I the a-hole? TLDR, I got a worker moved to a different department because her weight prevented her from getting the work done despite extra measures being put in place to help her. She's now trying to ruin me and take legal action. Down in the comments, Bosca Bruiser says, "Oh God. Not the a-hole. Legal action for what? What's the legal complaint? You moved her for just sitting. She and everyone else are being ridiculous. Hopefully, your employer has your back." GameCap says, "Not the a-hole. But I would not frame it as she's too fat. That isn't even the actual reason for getting rid of her, and all using those words would do is undermine the real reason, and get you into a load of trouble. The correct reason is poor performance. Your company policy openly states that this is a more physically intensive job, have noted and hopefully documented that she is doing 1/5 the work of any other employee, have given her extra allowances for her to complete her tasks, have talked to her about her poor performance and sought to find ways to allow her to more easily accomplish her tasks, and she still is not able to accomplish her assigned tasks in a prompt manner." Further down in the comments, Nyank says, "Not the a-hole, but you are doing yourself a disservice by focusing on her weight. You had an employee who wasn't meeting performance expectations. You warned them of the problem didn't go away, you transferred her out due to performance issues. The reasons behind her lack of productivity don't really matter, and honestly, you don't even know for sure it was the weight. So stop making it about that." Now on to the next story. Posted by Harabi95. Titled, "Would I be the a-hole if handing in my notice will force the company to be understaffed and shut down? I've been working for a small family company for a few years now and it used to be great. Recently the job has become far too much for me to handle. I have been working 50+ hours a week every week and there are only 3 members of staff doing a job that used to have 6 to 7 people doing it. It's got to the point where work is so busy we don't get breaks, have to start earlier than usual, finish later than usual and sometimes don't get a day off some weeks, leading to working 13 days in a row. The stress has become immense and leading to problems at home as I rarely see my partner as she works too. I have spoken to my boss about this and he has said that it's just how it is and he can't change the amount I'm working and give days off with so little staff or inexperienced staff. I have applied and have been accepted for a job and I am now due to hand in my notice. However, someone else has just left, leaving me and 1 other staff member remaining. If I leave, the business will collapse and I feel it will be my fault and I will be ruining the lives of the people who hired me as they will lose their business. If I hand in my notice to make my boss and his family jobless, am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, I'm a big fat rat 21 says. Not the a-hole. You aren't obligated to stay at a job, especially if they are screwing you over and if you found a job that better suits your needs. As of they might shut down, they should have thought about that and prepared for the inevitable. Squitten says. Not the a-hole. If they can't afford to hire adequate staff, then the business is failing and that isn't your fault in any way. It is the fault of either whoever ran it badly or simply market forces that this business isn't viable. You should leave. Further down in the comments, your little birdie says. Not the a-hole. If someone's business model is utterly dependent on one single person never quitting, they are doing a terrible job of running their business. And that is not your fault. They are putting their business first ahead of your needs, so you should feel absolutely no guilt about putting your own needs first. Now on to the next story. Posted by Throw RA Overspender. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling future sister-in-law she was wasting her parents' money on wedding? I 32 female have a brother Andre 34 male who is engaged to Molly 30 female. We come from a humble middle-class family that values hard work with their hands. Andre is a factory supervisor at a car parts manufacturing business. I help manage an apartment complex. Molly, however, comes from a family with money. Her parents grew up poor, but her dad worked a good line job in the 90s, her mom was a corporate lawyer, and now her family is loaded. Both her siblings and her have what I called a spoiled complex. Molly and Andre revealed yesterday that they would be having a big, beautiful wedding. They began listing things off that they want. Limo, dress designer, venue, etc. when I mentioned how expensive all that would be. Molly said she wasn't worried. When I asked why, she said her parents gave her $50,000 cash for her wedding as they believe it is the responsibility of the bride's parents to pay for the wedding. I couldn't believe it. I felt Molly was spending money frivolously. I told her she should invest that money instead of having a huge wedding. She promptly told me that whenever I get a man that I can do just that and to not tell her what to do with her money. Andre chuckled, but I didn't find it funny. It's not her money. It's her parents'. Molly is a teacher and doesn't make that much, so I think this is a great opportunity to get ahead financially. Andre of course took her side and told me to mind my business. Today, Andre called me and I asked if he was seriously going to let her waste $50,000 on one day. He said that's not his place to tell her how to spend her family's money, but I disagree. Andre told me to mind my own business, but I think he's making a mistake marrying someone who just throws money around. I must have been on speakerphone because Molly responded with, and that's why your ass is single. Because you can't mind your damn business. She then called me jealous. And Andre is on her side. I'm not jealous, but I know weddings shouldn't be that much. Andre said Molly knows how to handle money because her parents taught her, but I think this is a mistake, and my parents agree that Molly is just flaunting wealth for no reason. But Andre says Molly is more financially responsible than any of us, stating she helps him manage his 401k and started a Roth IRA for him when they met. But I just can't believe that she's financially responsible if she is going to waste $50,000 on one day. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, JKSH says, You're the a-hole. You sound jealous that Molly's family is able to and wants to help her out. Get off your high horse. Creepy Carry 213 says, I hate to break it to you, but you're the a-hole. Molly is right, you should mind your own business. It's not your money nor your wedding. I could understand if it was your parents' money that you might be upset, but this is her parents' money, and if they want to spend $50,000 on a wedding they can. If you want to continue to have a relationship with your brother and his future wife, just leave the situation alone. Further down in the comments, Imaginary Cow 5859 says, You're the a-hole and sound bitter. Beginning with values hard work with their hands, I knew you would bash someone who wasn't a factory worker. I grew up similar to you and know the attitude many have towards those working corporate and how they spend money. It's really none of your business. Yes, I think it's a waste, but it's not my money. You're also telling your brother to control his future wife. I'd get the anger if your brother was taking out a loan to pay for it or spending all of his savings. Posted by Daughter Issues 3872. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my daughter money after she ignored me her whole life? I got pregnant with my daughter Emma at 18. I lived at home and was going to college and working. When I got pregnant, my parents kicked me out and I had to move in with my ex. I dropped out of school and quit my job to take care of Emma because my ex told me he would support me. When I was 22, he was 24. He graduated law school. He told me I had to move out because he wanted to find a wife. My parents had forgiven me, so I moved in with them. We didn't have a court order, but we split custody pretty much 25-75, with me having more time. When Emma was 6, he married his now wife. She couldn't have any more kids and wanted Emma and her daughter to be sisters. Over the next 3 years, Emma spent less and less time with me. She'd throw a fit if I tried to pick her up. They gave her things I couldn't. When she was 8, she told me she hated me. I never blamed her for the lies her father put in her head, because even though I lived at home, I was in college and working and did my best to provide for her, but obviously they could do more. They took me to court when she was 10 and surprise, the lawyer and his doctor wife with their $1 million home beat me in court. They painted me out to be this horrible parent and Emma backed them up. They got primary custody and I got visitation. But Emma refused to see me. I gave her money and gifts. But she didn't want me in her life. When I was 30, I met my husband. He is the most amazing man I have ever met. He's seen me struggle with this and been very supportive. He has a daughter Emma's age and a son who is 5 years younger. They lost their mom and were very welcoming and loving. They treated me like their mom. Emma made zero efforts to get to know my husband and stepkids. Emma and stepdaughter just graduated high school this past May, and my parents also recently passed and gave me their estate since I am an only child. I have decided to pay for my stepdaughter's entire college tuition and buy her a car, pay for an apartment. Emma contacted me a week ago and told me she missed me and wanted to see me. This shocked me, seeing as we haven't talked in a year. We met up and she told me she heard my parents died and asked if she could have some money to pay for college. I was shocked and said, "Well, what about your dad and his wife?" She said, "My mom and dad want me to pay for this on my own to teach me responsibility, and I believe I am entitled to money seeing as you ruined my life." I was very hurt and told her, "After years of ignoring me and telling me I am not your mother, you demand money from me. I am not your wallet. My husband is telling me what I did was right, but my ex is telling me I'm a piece of shit and I owe this to her. My stepdaughter feels bad and offered her college money because my daughter and her friends have been harassing her." I said, "Absolutely not, that is your money. Am I the a-hole for not giving my daughter money after ignoring me her whole life?" Down in the comments, Car Trouble ABC says, "This seems like one of those stories where the two sides would tell very different versions. Everyone is biased in stories like this. I would be interested to hear how Emma described the scenario. Her upbringing, for instance. But taken at face value, based on what's here, not the a-hole." Animal Lover 38 says, "I'm always shocked at how this sub can be both optimistic and pessimistic on the strangest things. I've seen posts where the top comment is basically Sue and it's over something like $20 or someone picking flowers for the first time off of their bush. But when told two very wealthy people, one of which is presumably infertile and thus unable to have her own kids but was neatly presented one who already disliked their mother, sued for custody, and won against a woman who had no college degree and lived with her mother, there's obviously something else going on. What? There's no way she hated you because you were poor. Excuse me. Have you not seen the hundreds of posts on here about that exact situation? One parent showers the kid in gifts so they want to spend more time with them. She has to have a reason for hating you. Ah yeah, it's called dad talked smack about mom and while giving her things to make him seem like the saint. As for those thinking there's something else you're not saying because of the comment she said about harassment. Did you not think she was maybe talking out the messages Op sent in an attempt to talk to her daughter? She was obviously continuously spoiled in order to be bribed to stay with her dad and stepmom. It's not that far of a stretch to think she's entitled enough that she genuinely thinks she'll be able to sue her own mother for trying to be a mother. The only thing I think is weird is that her dad said he wasn't going to pay for college so she can learn to be responsible, but then is now getting mad at Op for not paying for her. Like what? That defeats your whole point. Further down in the comments, MineEfficient4043 says, "Not the a-hole. Poisoned or not, that relationship is dead. While, yes, she is your biological child, she's not your daughter. Your ex and his wife made sure of that. Because of your limited contact with her over the years, she's going to think of you as a wallet and use the manipulation skills of her parents to get what she wants. You did the right thing. Not the a-hole and stay the course." Now on to the next story. Posted by Willing Occasion 501. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for mom shaming my sister? My 28 female sister and her wife 32 female, 33 female have 3 kids, 12 female, 10 female, 7 male. All 3 kids are unschooled, basically meaning they don't go to school or homeschool. My sister had undiagnosed ADHD until college and was miserable in school, so she said she didn't want to put her kids through that. My sister explained it as letting them learn naturally at their own pace without it being as rigid as attending traditional public school. Sounds great on paper, except that my sister's kids don't do much of any actual learning or anything at all. My nieces attend dance classes and my nephew plays soccer, but that's basically it. Whenever I go over there, the kids are either glued to the TV, running around doing whatever, or playing computer or iPad games. I know my oldest niece is at least literate, since she's developed a thing for writing short stories, but if the younger two have ever even so much as read anything that wasn't a restaurant menu, I couldn't tell you. At the end of the day, they're not my kids and it isn't my choice to make. It's still worrying though. As my own son is getting close to school age, my sister has been bugging me on doing the same with him. I don't know why she thinks I'd go that route, seeing as my son has probably learned more in daycare than any of her kids have in the past few years. Yesterday, when this was brought up over the phone, I told my sister that me and my husband both work, so it's not feasible. She offered to watch my son during the day if that was the case, since she's a stay-at-home mom. I had to give it to her straight. I think she's setting her kids up for failure by not giving them a proper education, and I'm not going to do that to my son. I pointed out that her kids are uneducated, do a whole lot of nothing, and it's only downhill from here if she doesn't set up more structure with them. I'm just not gonna have that be my son, too. My sister went off and accused me of mom shaming her, saying I didn't need to do that and could have just said no, her kids are fine and it's none of my business, etc. She hung up on me and I got inundated shortly after by texts from her wife basically saying the same stuff, saying I'm horrible for talking about my sister and their kids like that. Now even my mom has gone against me, saying I have no right to treat family like that and how could I talk about my own nieces and nephews that way? Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, is this real life 2015-20 says. Not the a-hole. Technically she could be brought up on educational neglect. Homeschooling means following an accredited homeschooling program so that when the kids are of age they can actually say they completed school and either go to college or get a real job that requires a high school diploma. Don't feel bad, the truth hurts. Nefariousness Glum 424 says. Not the a-hole. This is something she should be shamed for. Her kids are going to have an awful time when they need to be productive adults or even just trying to make friends at their same age or education level. This is the basic responsibility of parenting, is to raise a self-sufficient adult. Yes, there are different accepted methods of parenting to get to that end result, but this is not one of them. Further down in the comments, Purple Weasel says, nobody loses their kids for educational neglect. At worst, the mom might be required to put them back in regular school, and even that is pretty unlikely if they can pass some basic tests. CPS is incredibly understaffed and underfunded, and can barely handle cases of actual physical abuse. There's no way they would have the resources to deal with something like this. If OP actually wants to help, then they'd be better off just providing the kids with books, or having another heart-to-heart with the parents. But if they want to punish the parents, then they are probably out of luck with CPS. Now on to the next story. Posted by Firefox 2017. Titled, Am I the a-hole for how I punished my stepdaughter for flushing her sister's spices down the toilet? I, male 42, married my current wife when my daughter 16 was 4 and my stepdaughter 14 was 2. They grew up as if they were blood siblings, with occasional disagreements and jealousy issues, mostly from my stepdaughter. 2 days ago was my daughter's dog's 3rd death's anniversary. Usually, at that time she'd rather be alone to write poems or look at pictures of her beloved dog. This year she asked me to go with her to visit his grave, which is located in her grandparents' farm. My wife appreciates my daughter's need to have time alone, but my stepdaughter wanted to come with us, though she wasn't close to the dog. My daughter refused to let her come and only wanted me to go. My stepdaughter threw a fit and insisted on coming. I sat her down to explain her sister's need for space that day. She stopped after that. We left, and 15 minutes later my wife texted me that my stepdaughter had a breakdown and didn't stop crying, then flushed all her sister's spices that were in separate containers down the toilet. They were a gift from my daughter's Asian friend's mom, since my daughter's into Asian food and cooks meals every week. I was stunned. I called my wife but got no response. My daughter asked what's wrong, but I just dropped her off at her grandparents' farm, then went back home. My stepdaughter refused to come out of her room, yelling that my daughter deserved it for excluding her like that. I was pissed. I told her I'd punish her for wasting spices that were important to her sister that she shouldn't even touch by taking from her saving to pay for the damages, but my wife thought I'd only take away privileges, not money my stepdaughter saved. She said she's still a kid and she won't let me touch her saving but will pay herself. But if my wife paid, then my stepdaughter will think her behavior is okay. She also said my daughter is to blame too for not letting her stepsister come with her. She acted as if she never goes to the farm, though I take them there twice a month. I argued that this was, in my opinion, the right punishment to get this resolved, but my wife said I was only making my stepdaughter resent me because she wants the money for a new bicycle. We kept disagreeing on this, and all I was thinking of was my daughter's reaction when I told her. She was devastated, but I assured her I was taking steps to help her replace all the spices she lost. My wife called me cruel. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Christmas 850 says, the consequence you came up with is absolutely fair. Since when do consequences need to be adapted and tailored to the kids' preferences? You also shouldn't be afraid to insist on a consequence just because she's your stepdaughter. You've raised her most of her life. Moreover, what she did was wrong. So she wanted to save up for a new bicycle. Well, her sister wanted to save those spices for cooking a meal. She owes her sister monetary compensation. The whole point is to show her that it's not worth doing something like this again. If your stepdaughter is sad or upset about this consequence, that means it's working. Not the a-hole. Type 1 error says, your wife doesn't want your stepdaughter to replace something that she stole. Suddenly, her tantrums at 14 years old aren't so surprising. Not the a-hole. Further down in the comments, AspieGirl24 says, not the a-hole. At 14 she is old enough to know right from wrong, and a bit too old for temper tantrums. I don't see any reason why she shouldn't have to pay for the spices she ruined. It wasn't your wife who ruined the spices, it was your daughter. If she didn't have any money, then removing privileges would be a suitable response, but she can afford to pay for what she has done. In some cases, it might be difficult to replace the spices if they are authentic Asian. Some spices you have to go to a specific place to get. Now on to the next story. Posted by Warm Honeydew 3339. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my neighbor he can't expect me to pick up and take care of his child every day? My neighbor lives beside us and has a 5-year-old little boy, and to put it nicely, he's a handful. He and my 4 kids are in a summer church program where they get picked up in the morning and then a bus brings them home to drop them off. They do outdoor activities, crafts, and also some religious activities. My neighbor is a single father. His wife died this year. Well, lately within the week he hasn't been home when the kids get dropped off, and the little boy tells me that his dad told him to come home with me and my kids so he can play until he gets home. He never even asked me if this was okay. It's been 5 days of this now, and I have to take my kids to a dance practice tomorrow, so I told my neighbor when he picked up his son that he needs to ask first because I have things to do some evenings. He told me I wasn't being understanding of him and that he needed help because his wife died and that he had to work and I could watch him since I'm a stay-at-home mom. I told him that I was trying to be helpful, but I couldn't be expected to watch him every day because some evenings we have prior engagements and he needed to call a babysitter. He said he couldn't afford one and that I'm putting him in a bind. I apologized, but he's angry and told his son that I just didn't want him there and stormed off. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Zorga says, not the a-hole. No one can expect someone to just take care of their own kid like that. You are reasonable, logical, and fair. He needs to contact family or get support from government. Abby Burb says, okay. Definitely not the a-hole. He has overstepped so many boundaries here. He's using, taking advantage of, and trying to manipulate you. It would be a different thing if he first asked you like a normal non-a-hole person would do. And you had the option to accept or not. I'm sorry his wife passed away, but that does not give him free rein to play the sympathy card to get whatever he wants. Further down in the comments, Catherine Lena says, doesn't this qualify as child abandonment or at least neglect? He didn't even check to see if OP would be home before sending his kid to her house multiple days in a row. What if she had afternoon activities for her kids that first day? Would the 5-year-old have just been alone for hours? Stay-at-home mom doesn't mean stays at home every second of every day, let alone free neighborhood childcare without notice or any communication. Not the a-hole OP, and honestly, consider calling CPS. I get that he's having a hard time dealing with the death of his wife, but this ain't it. Now on to the next story. Posted by Leigh. Titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my sister a bridezilla and saying her wedding is not worth going broke over? My older sister is getting married in the spring. She got engaged 5 years ago, had been set to go ahead with a pretty small wedding 4 years ago, and then changed her mind. We had outfits bought for it, invites had been sent, the whole 9 yards. Then she decided she wanted bigger and better. She asked me to be her only bridesmaid beforehand, before the cancellation, and after she had decided to go bigger, more expensive and with more time required of me, I told her I was no longer able to fulfill the role. I mention this because it is relevant for later. Anyway, the wedding was planned for this summer, but then COVID hit and their venue had issues with dates, so they took a date for March 2022. Things have gotten so out of hand with this wedding. My sister gave us a dress code back in May. Women need to wear pink or blue dresses, all men need to be in a white tux, girls need to wear pink, boys need to wear white including shoes. Then she told us we would need to bring spare shoes. I asked, why? She said they had plans that would require a change of footwear. She then wanted my boys at the wedding. But that meant buying $400 sets for each of them, and they're 5 and 1. So we declined that. And I did say the reason was we could not afford it. she was told both times. She did not want to offer help with it. Then she hit us with the real kicker. She's getting married in this castle-style hotel. Very fancy, very expensive, and quite a drive from everyone's home. But she is not booking them for a wedding suite or a wedding package for room rates. Oh no. She has requested both sides of the family pay for the even more luxurious hotel on the beach that costs $600 a night per person. And to get a suite fit for a family because they don't provide suitable furniture for kids to sleep on. She wants us to stay there because she booked a photographer to take photos at 8 a.m. the morning after the wedding on the beach the hotel is on. So we would also need to be up early for photos the next day. My husband and I cannot afford it. It's a huge expense. My sister said we were being unreasonable. I said she was being a bridezilla. She told me it's her wedding, a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I should do this for her. I told her I couldn't. She told me I should as her sister. As someone who loves her and wants to see her get married. I told her that her wedding was not worth going broke over, not when I have 2 kids to feed, clothe, house, etc. She called me a raging bitch and told me I just didn't want her to get married and wanted to shit over everything. That's why I dropped out of her wedding, why I said no to the boys being in her wedding, and why I'm doing this now. She said I was rude to her calling her a bridezilla and had shit all over our relationship saying her wedding wasn't worth spending money on. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, New Red Spider says, not the a-hole. What's her problem? You literally can't afford it yet she's still having an attitude. Her childish behavior just proves that she's not worth going broke over. Who would force their guests to pay that much? It's ridiculous. It's her wedding, not yours, so you're not obligated to pay that much. Avast 2006 says, not the a-hole, it's my once-in-a-lifetime wedding, and therefore I have the right to bankrupt you in order to get my fantasy down to the last detail. Yeah, no. I can't afford that is always a valid reason to decline. Further down in the comments, Caucus Aurelis says, definitely not the a-hole. Your shit show of a sister expects everyone's lives and time and finances to twirl around whatever new idea pops into her head. You have a family of your own, and you are correct to set boundaries around it. Maybe apologize for calling her a bridezilla. But your decisions are not wrong at all. Now on to the next story. Posted by Tall Alfalfa 3192. Titled, Would I be the a-hole if I stopped maintaining my garden so that my neighbors could sell their house? So I live on a country road. I only have 3 other houses around me, 2 across the road and 1 next door. My neighbors is a new build, a beautiful big detached 6-bed property, with immaculate lawns, etc. Mine is an older, smaller country cottage. My neighbors are selling their house and apparently, their estate agent told them that my house was lowering the value of the property. Not implying they're lying, but I don't know if this is exactly true. They asked me if I would spend some time and money just making the front of my house look a little more attractive so they can sell. By the way, we don't have a relationship. I've sent them a card and vouchers every Christmas and they've never so much as said hello. To be honest, my house isn't exactly the neatest. My dad cuts the grass for me about once a fortnight, but when it's due it can get very long. I personally don't mind this. In fact, it attracts bees and butterflies, and I like it. The paved areas are always weedy, and I live right beside the roadside that's busy with lorries and tractors, so everything's covered in dust and dirt. Again, personally, I've never cared as I only see the front of the house for a fleeting second when I'm driving past. After they spoke to me I was embarrassed, so I went out and bought hanging baskets and some window boxes. I filled them with cheap flowers, but altogether I think it came to about £80 for pots, baskets, plants, compost, weed killer, etc. I pressure washed the windows and front wall, and it was all looking lovely for about 2 weeks. And then it got dirty and dusty again, The plants all look great, but it's impossible for me to maintain the lawn and weeds, and keep it looking like that every week. I'm a single mum, I have 4 kids and I get very little help or support. My parents do what they can, but I'm already exhausted and overwhelmed with housework and everything I have to do to keep our lives ticking over. I'm also a full-time student and try to spend my spare time working on my projects because I'm getting firsts in my modules and want to maintain that. These things are eating up all my time, yet I feel like I have to spend every free minute keeping the front of my house immaculate for my neighbors' sake. It's making me anxious, exhausted, and I feel like I'm being looked down on by my neighbors and their potential buyers. Would I be the a-hole if I just stopped and let the house look however it looks? Down in the comments, Babs Garcia says, "Not the a-hole. Stop. Go to them and say directly and say, I've been doing a lot of thinking since you approached me about my yard, and while over the years we did not become friends, I at least reached out at Christmas with cards and vouchers. Yet the only time you've reached out to me is to ask to help you sell your home by doing more work in my yard. Did you know I am a single parent of 4? Did you know I am on a fixed budget? No, because you never got to know me. Yet I am so kind that I have spent money, time, and sleepless nights over the last several weeks trying to keep up appearances for you, the same people that have ignored my family's existence for years. Frankly, I am finished, and honestly, you should be ashamed. If you'd like to pay for someone to cut my grass or do some other yard work, put up a natural barrier to the road to stop the dirt I can't control from landing all over, you are welcome to do so, as long as I have the final say on anything beyond cutting the grass. Otherwise, my yard is what it is. Best of luck and have a nice life." Koala Lover 97 says, "I wouldn't upkeep it just for their sake. It will only mean someone buys the house thinking it's like that all the time and then complains when it isn't. You've got more important things to be thinking of, and you did get flowers and things, so you shouldn't be breaking your back every week so they can sell their house. If people looking around the house don't like it because of your house, then I'd say it's better off they don't buy it, and that you don't give anyone a false impression." Further down in the comments, L8 Ego says, "Not the a-hole. If they are so concerned about how the front of your house looks, they can damn well do it themselves. Stop worrying about it and get on with what's important to you. Sounds like you are keeping to a reasonable standard anyway." Posted by Kira 2000. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for correcting a false rumor about my disability? This is really weird. I, 20 female, have been volunteering at a community garden since the start of lockdown last year. I need volunteer hours for my college program, and I've always liked gardening and the outdoors, so it's honestly pretty fun. Over the past few weeks, I've noticed other volunteers and the volunteer coordinator treating me strangely. They talk to me slowly, assume I don't understand basic math, and freak out when I drive myself rather than having my mom drop me. Well, last weekend the coordinator, Kathy, 40s female, asked if I was comfortable working in the garden alone while she went to get coffee. I told her sure, and I kind of laughed because I'm an adult and it's a well-lit, public place. She said she loves that I'm so independent but is concerned that my mom wouldn't like her to leave me. I politely said that I was 20 years old and checking with my mom wasn't necessary. She said something about my disability, and after lots of questions, she admitted that another volunteer told her I had an intellectual disability and the mental age of an 8-year-old child. I was honestly shocked, and I told her I was in college and my intelligence was normal. I said clearly that I don't have any disability. I asked Kathy who had started the rumor, and she wouldn't say. Now, Kathy is texting me that she didn't like the way I responded and that I acted like disabled people were lesser or I didn't want to be associated with them. This isn't true at all. I haven't responded, but I need some neutral opinions. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Magic Maui Wowie says, "Not the a-hole. Sounds like Kathy started the rumor. You didn't act in a negative way about those with intellectual disabilities, and you were clear about your own. Kathy is making stuff up. Neurotic Baker says. Neurodivergent person who's worked some in disability services here. It's not disrespectful or ableist to not be disabled, WTF. She's just trying to cover her ass and paint you as the bad guy so she doesn't have to feel bad about herself. Cause here's the thing, if you were disabled, this would still be a very shitty way to treat you. Disabled adults are still adults. If you needed accommodations, like people talking slowly or not being safe being alone, it would still be your responsibility to ask for those things, not the people around you to guess what would be helpful. If your mom needed to be looped in about stuff, then there should be a file somewhere with a contact number for her. If you're good to drive, you're good to drive. There's no need to freak out about it for F's sake. Licensing boards exist for a reason. My best guess as to what happened is Kathy, or somebody else, somehow came to the conclusion that you're disabled, probably based on a flimsy snap judgment. Do they have any idea what kind of disability, what kind of accommodations you'd need? No, because that's not important to them. It's not about supporting you, as a potentially disabled adult, treating you as an equal. It's about them getting the feel-goods from being able to take care of you, you poor thing. If your co-worker wants to frame herself as an ally to the disabled community, that's peachy. But you don't do that by making assumptions, talking down to people, and then getting offended when you get negative feedback. That's literally exactly what disabled people would like to see a lot less of, actually. Plenty of that to go around already. Further down in the comments, the Riker Maneuver says, you need to contact the people who run the community garden program and talk to them about this. Don't respond to Kathy at all. Odds are she is the one who started the rumor and is now just covering her own ass. Not the a-hole. Now on to the next story. Posted by Weewig. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend's parents that I'm not stealing their little boy? He is a grown man who can make his own choices and has chosen our relationship. I have been with Joey for about a year. I feel like his family started to resent me because he was spending more time with me and less at home. This month, I got a great job offer in Colorado. Joey has recently finished his master's degree and is looking for a first full-time job. We decided together to move to Colorado. I'd take the job and he'd look for a job there. For context, home is Connecticut. Both of our families live in Connecticut, but I think he and his family do a lot more in-person things. My family is very busy, and even though we all live in the same area, we mostly keep in touch by phone. It was a big move, but my job offer was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. We decided together that was what we wanted to do. After all, he didn't have a job yet, so this was the perfect time for us to move, when we had the freedom to move without either of us having to make an unwanted career sacrifice. He told his family on his own, and from what he said later, they were upset. They thought it was a bad idea to move cross-country for a girl. They thought it would be hard to live somewhere without family, friends, or a support network, especially if we'd be having kids. I left that whole bag of worms for him to handle, like it's his family. My family was super excited for me and not totally surprised. They were just like, of course, our wild child is moving to the mountains. Anyway, I got brought into his family drama a bit at his youngest sister's birthday party. His mom and dad were in the kitchen when I came in to get water, and his mom told me pretty bluntly that she didn't like the idea of us uprooting our lives and leaving family. I said that my family was happy for me and excited for me, and that I thought it could be an exciting positive thing. I think that irritated her more. She started lecturing me on how important family is, and how it was reckless and selfish what I was doing, pulling her son across the country away from everyone he knows. I asked, "Is that really what you think I'm doing? Pulling him away?" She said she knew it was my idea. And that she knew I knew that by doing it, I'd be stealing him away from family life, from his sisters, and parents and grandparents. I said that I found it pretty condescending that she was acting like I was stealing her little boy. He's a grown man, who can make his own choices. Nobody can steal a man, they go where they damn well please. And my boyfriend made a choice, his own choice, not mine, to choose our relationship and come along with me to Colorado. She found that really rude, and so did my boyfriend's dad. He got very short with me and told me to leave the house rather than speak to his wife like that. I went home. Amy the a-hole for having said what I did to my boyfriend's parents. Down in the comments, Tech Controller 2002 says, "Not the a-hole. Let your boyfriend deal with them. His parents sound controlling of the whole family. Ignore them, don't let them dictate your feelings. Some folks don't know there is a whole world out there to explore. Sounds like your boyfriend couldn't wait to get the hell out of there and his parents know it." Mighty Thorgasm says, "Ah yes, the old let's start a fight instead of confronting our own sadness routine. People grieve in different ways, some cry, some ignore it, and some try to start an argument at a birthday party and then act like the victim. None of these things are actually your concern. However, you may want to tell your BF that he needs to work on communication with his family so they realize that he's not a child anymore." Further down in the comments, Unknown 928121 says, "Me reading the title, well how old is he, maybe he's young and they're in denial. Me reading he just finished his masters, oh lord. Not the a-hole, you all gotta live your life. She accosted you because she thinks you're putting ideas into her son's head of what he can or cannot do. He's a grown educated man, he can make choices for himself. You did the right thing leaving when they asked. It shows that while you may not agree with what they are saying, you respect the boundary they created, just like they should respect your future boundary of any issues you have with your son should be discussed with him, not me." Now on to the next story. Posted by Friends Then Benefits. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my parents the things they do aren't normal?" So I, 22 female, am a full-time college student living at home with my parents. As I got older, I quickly realized my parents were pretty strict and a bit out of the ordinary compared to other parents. For example, once in 8th grade, I was invited to go to Universal Studios with a friend and her family and then invited to a Christmas party happening the next day, but I had to pick only one because that's too many things to do in one weekend. This type of behavior continued well into my senior year and only recently calmed down, but only because they know I don't know anyone. And despite all this, they think they're lenient because other people don't get these privileges, even though I know for a fact other people my age are allowed more freedoms. I'm not even allowed to spend the night away from home. They also don't know the definition of space. Up until recently, they refused to let me have my own bath towel and still think it's selfish. And they literally never leave the house. They both have worked from home my entire life and only go to the gym for an hour 4 times a week and the grocery store, and that's it. They don't have friends and I have never seen them hang out with other people, so they're almost against the idea of me hanging out with anyone besides family. After years of this, I've gotten really frustrated that they think it's normal and that they're so lenient, so I flat out told them that the things they do aren't normal and other parents are usually more lenient than this. Well, this really pissed them off and they said that I'm wrong and I'm an a-hole to even have an issue with any of this, especially them being home so much since I'm living under their roof that they pay the mortgage and water for. Which made me think maybe I was the a-hole for mentioning it, but I just get tired of them thinking they're so easy and not controlling as parents. So am I wrong and an a-hole? Down in the comments, Omeg4Dork says, "Not the a-hole, but do move out from under their thumb. They can hit you with my house, my rules, so leave. Slum it with a roommate till you get on your feet. Set up boundaries for them so they can't interfere with your life. Good luck." Cryptographer Salty50 says, "Normal is relative and nothing you say will convince them they aren't normal. They will just think you are being ungrateful. Do all you can to move out as soon as possible." Further down in the comments, Slowfishing 837 says, "Not the a-hole. That's too many things to do in one weekend is right up there with you've had too much fun. So what now? I go stare at the ceiling. And you're right, they're being weird. It's like they got so caught up in being the disciplinarians they never figured out how to transition to the next, looser stage of parenting. Now on to the next story. Posted by @sufficient9917. Titled, Am I the a-hole for apologizing to my mother-in-law in front of people and making her look crazy? My mother-in-law and I have a bad past and she doesn't get along well with her son. We are as close to no contact with her as we can manage, but we did have to briefly live with her due to some job loss. I admit it was a stressful period for me, looking for a job, planning my wedding, and having to live with her. I know I lashed out and was in the wrong. For some background, my mother-in-law is extremely attention-seeking. I've seen her throw fits at birthday parties because they weren't about her. I've seen her fake being dizzy for attention. The whole family jokes about how attention-seeking she is, and on top of that, she kept giving unwanted opinions about our wedding and how we could do it better. MIL lent me her hair straightener for my job interview. When I went to return it, her door was cracked, so I figured I could just go in, which I should have knocked. She had a floor-length white, sparkly gown, laying on her bed, and I assumed it was her mother of the groom's dress. Because that is something I had worried about her doing. I yelled at her that what the fuck was that, and then I lost it, and I know I said some hurtful things. I'm not proud of how I acted, and I went on a tirade. Mother-in-law let me get it all out and then told me it was her wedding gown. She was engaged and planning a September but hadn't told us because we weren't invited to. I apologized profusely. When mother-in-law's boyfriend got home from work, she told him what I had said and he kicked us out of the house. I wanted to clear the air with her because I was frazzled when I was apologizing and I don't even remember what I wanted to say. The other day we were all at a birthday party for SIL. Everyone in the family knows about this drama because mother-in-law is a huge gossip. I know for a fact that everyone gathered knew. Mother-in-law was sitting with sister-in-law, her mom, and a couple of cousins, and I went over and told her I wanted to apologize. I was totally out of line, and I wish her the best at her wedding. Mother-in-law got upset and said I did it in front of an audience to make her look bad. She said I was trying to look sweet and innocent and make her look crazy. Everyone was on my side and told her she was making herself look crazy, but her fiancé agreed that I shouldn't have done it in front of people and was trying to save face, and they left. Down in the comments, Abeata says, "Everyone sucks here. You and your mother-in-law are both equally crazy and don't understand anything about normal human contact." Disney Addict 2021 says, "Everyone sucks here. You said your mother-in-law is crazy. From your description, that is absolutely correct. However, from your behavior, you're an a-hole person as well. You can't cast stones on another person the way you do if you act just as childish and throw tantrums because you assume something. Also, if your apology was truly sincere, you would have done it privately with your mother-in-law. You did it in front of people purely for show." Further down in the comments, Golden Nebula says, "You're the a-hole. This was between the two of you. You jumped to conclusions majorly and you should have apologized for your behavior after you threw your temper tantrum. She doesn't sound great, but I see why you all butt heads at LOT. You all are the same person basically." Now on to the next story. Posted by NLD Luca. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not paying to eat out when my GF initially offered to celebrate my promotion? I, 27 male, have been with my girlfriend 24 female for around 4 months. I earn considerably more than her and she has previously been open in saying her wages do not cover her bills or monthly outgoings. I've preferred to keep my finances private to this point. I very recently got a promotion and she wanted to celebrate and take me out for a meal. On the day, however, she said she could not afford this, so I suggested I would get takeout and come to her place instead. She immediately said she was upset, as I earn over double what she does, and felt I should be more forthcoming and want to pay at this stage in the relationship. I acknowledged this and highlighted I had more outgoings than usual this month for various reasons, and I couldn't afford it either. I get to her place and we had an argument. Her perspective is that I know her wages aren't sufficient to pay her bills, yet I still allow her to pay for things. She felt I should be paying out more as my base wage is significantly higher. She kept saying she doesn't expect me to pay for everything, yet she was coming across this way and by saying it's the gentleman thing to do. My perspective is that I don't have much disposable income either, but would have paid for more if I could. I felt upset that once she found out my annual income, her first thought was not to our future, as she had a problem with what I was spending previously. She said, "Why would you allow me to spend that money if you knew I was struggling and you earn much more?" I feel that she came across as entitled. Ultimately, it's my money and decide how I spend it. I bit my tongue and focused on the resolution, as up until this point the relationship had been going really well, but now I'm concerned she will have different expectations going forward. AITA for not being more open to offering due to her circumstances, or am I right in thinking she's entitled as expecting me to pay more? Down in the comments, 52MO says, "Not the a-hole. Go find someone who doesn't want your money, bro. 4 months in and arguing over finances. Massive red flag, homeboy." Indignant Loris says, "Luckily you've only wasted 4 months on her. Seriously, 4 months and she thinks she's entitled to your money? And what's with all the sexist nonsense about the man pays for everything? If her pay doesn't cover her bills, then she needs to start living within her means, not ask you to subsidize her. Not the a-hole." Further down in the comments, Brandy8 Marie says, "Not the a-hole. The audacity of her to get mad that you won't take her out for your promotion after she offered is insane. From this post alone, kind of sounds like she's into you for your money, since she's getting mad when you won't spend it on her. My husband makes 35k a year more than I do, but we still split equally. We're very open with our budgets and don't make each other pay for anything we don't want to do or feel comfortable with. I wouldn't expect him to pick up the tab because he makes more money. It's the 21st century." Now on to the next story. Posted by Agreeable Scholar 762. Titled, "Am I the a-hole for agreeing with my brother's ex-girlfriend?" I, 34 female, have a young brother Tom, 30 male, who is co-parenting my 4-year-old nephew TJ with his ex Amanda, 30 female. She and my brother had known each other since middle school and dated off and on in high school. It wasn't until after college that they decided to get serious and moved in together. They were even engaged and would have gotten married if Amanda hadn't found out she was pregnant. The dream dress that she wanted to wear was not made for a pregnant woman's body and opted to wait until after their son was born for the actual wedding. Everything seemed to be going great until Tom decided to toss a grenade into the relationship by asking for a paternity test before signing the birth certificate. He admitted that he had no proof, nor did he suspect Amanda of cheating, and believed that their son was his but wanted to be 100%. Obviously, Amanda didn't take too kindly to what was being implied and moved out while Tom was away at work. A few days later he got the ring back through the mail along with a court summons for child support, which included the DNA he initially wanted. Tom was the father, and while there were people on both sides trying to push for reconciliation, Amanda wasn't interested. She was mostly civil about everything but refused to engage with Tom about anything that didn't directly involve their son. To me, she didn't seem angry, just cold, like she could put on this convincing mask of warmth and joy with Tom whenever TJ was around, but the second he wasn't she would go, "Please don't touch me." Tom has always been hurt over how Amanda responded to his request and feels that she failed TJ by walking away instead of just staying in the relationship. I mostly just bit my tongue, but now that Amanda has started dating again, Tom has gotten worse. One day he was ranting about how it was too soon for Amanda to be dating. I responded by bringing up how Tom has had at least 2 girlfriends since his relationship with Amanda ended. Tom defended himself, saying that what he did was different as he was just dating to have fun and scratch an itch while Amanda is looking to marry. Eventually, I got fed up with his attitude and told him that the only reason he's in this situation is because of the choice to question paternity. Tom said that as a man he had every right to know if TJ was his, and I countered with Amanda having every right to leave him over it, as no honest woman should have to be treated as if they've done something wrong, and that I would have done the exact same thing as her if a man ever dared to try something like that with me. Since then my parents and a few of Tom's friends have said I was in the wrong, as my brother was looking for a sympathetic ear rather than being kicked while he was down. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Tulips and Tacos says, "Not the a-hole. Amanda dodged a bullet and I hope that she finds happiness." Evocative Enigma says, "Not the a-hole. Tom is an a-hole for even suggesting that his fiancée was unfaithful. She was good to leave him. Good for her for finding someone she is happy with. He's an a-hole for claiming he gets to date in order to scratch an itch, but she shouldn't be allowed to move on with her life. What sort of backward sexist logic is that? Good for you for telling your brother it was the wrong move to pull and he only brought his misery on himself." Further down in the comments, Arba Arabiki says, "Not the a-hole. Tom blew it, honestly. His lack of empathy was staggering. Imagine going through all of the discomforts of pregnancy, morning sickness, exhaustion, odd cravings, heartburn, swollen ankles, swollen feet, strangers giving you advice you don't want, strangers wanting to touch your stomach in the grocery store, body distortion, and people taking your career less seriously. But you tell yourself it's worth it because you're creating a new life to share with you and the man you love and with whom you hope to spend the rest of your life. Then said man, for no reason whatsoever, demands a paternity test. Of course she's shattered. This man whom she loved deeply, whom she sacrificed for, demonstrated that he believed she would cheat. Of course she's deeply offended and devastated. Tom took her heart and stomped on it. There's no going back from that. He acted unforgivably and now he's experiencing the consequences." Now on to the next story. Posted by Tway234234234. Titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking a guest out of the house? My girlfriend, 24 female, is the breadwinner in our household. I don't really make that much, but she has a stable job, and her parents are loaded, so whenever it comes to big purchases like our first home, and car, etc., she handles it. I usually just try to buy the smaller necessities like household utilities and groceries. Obviously, I get teased and hassled about it from people we know once in a while. I really don't appreciate when this happens, and I've talked to my GF about how she feels about these things. She told me what I do is enough for her, and the only thing that matters is that we are happy. There is a friend of hers who literally just won't shut up about me being the housewife. She always passive-aggressively makes remarks about my income and things about how a man should care for his GF. Since she usually does this in front of other people, I don't say anything because I hate making scenes in public, so I usually just stay silent. We had a small get-together with some of me and my GF's friends, and she was invited. The first thing she commented on was the decor in our house. She then smirked and asked if I was the one who paid for it or my GF. My GF gave me this look like I'm sorry, and that really just set me off. After everyone came in, I asked her to come to the front door. When we got there, I asked her to put on her shoes. She asked where we were going and I told her she was leaving because I'm not dealing with her stupid bullshit. She said it's not up to me since I didn't pay for the house, and I told her I would make sure she would have zero fun if she decided to stay. She said her BF dropped her off and that she didn't have a ride, and I told her to go Uber or something. She left and some people started asking me where she was. I just said she had to go because something came up, but my GF's friends didn't take the story because they overheard what she had said to me and guessed that I kicked her out. I just told them what happened and they started berating me for kicking her out over nothing, and that as if I was a real man, the things she said shouldn't bother me. What the fuck does that even mean? My GF is indifferent to the situation. But my GF's friends don't seem to understand that it's fucking annoying to have to deal with that every time I see her. I feel conflicted and maybe I shouldn't have kicked her out. Am I the a-hole? Down in the comments, Walk to the Brook says, not the a-hole, but I am concerned your GF is only indifferent instead of being on your side. Hello Friend says, OP, you really need to stand up for yourself in a more direct approach. The way you handled things with your sly manner backfired. I'm not calling you an asshole, but kicking her out and giving everyone else a different story was not making you look good. It gave her the opportunity to control the narrative, not that you have anything to prove to anyone. Additionally, you should have stopped her insults from the get-go. I understand it's challenging to do so in a group setting, but that seems humiliating to just take it in front of others. Just say it's rude and tell her to stop in front of everyone. Further down in the comments, Pinky Flamingo says, not the a-hole, but your GF is. Nobody should be disrespected by guests in their own home. GF should have shut this down the first time it happened. Your masculinity is not at issue. Your dignity and privacy are. GF should not allow her friends to abuse the man she loves. Now on to the next story. Posted by Meow Meow 096. Titled, Am I the a-hole if I refuse to park one spot over? Hello. I moved 2 weeks ago and received a note yesterday from my downstairs neighbor about where I've been parking. Where we live there are no assigned parking spots. We all park in the back of the house and the spots are first come first serve. I work Monday through Friday until 3 p.m. and so far I've always been the first one home, nobody else in the lot, so I always end up in the first parking spot. In the note, she writes how she understands the parking spots aren't assigned, but for 4 years now she's always parked in this one spot and would like for me to park one spot over. She also mentions how this one spot is right next to her stairs, but this one spot is also right next to my stairs as well. I spoke to our landlord and told him what's going on. He said there's not much he can do and I should just talk to her myself. I wrote a note back last night, but I'm debating leaving it. I don't want to cause more problems. Am I the asshole if I refuse to park one spot over? I feel like I'm not the asshole. By parking one spot over so she can park next to her stairs, I'd be inconveniencing myself. This one spot that she wants is also right next to my stairs. I'm not taking it intentionally. Whenever I get home I just park in whatever spot is first available. Edit, she left a 2-page note in my mailbox. The note was started off by saying, I thought you guys would have figured it out by now, but I've parked in the first spot for 4 years now without any issues until now. She then ended the note by saying, no hard feelings ID, just appreciate my spot back. Also, yes, I'm aware that I don't know for sure if she has any disability. The point I'm trying to make is it makes it easier for everyone else to park if the first person home parks in the first spot, then everyone parks next to them. By leaving this spot open for just her, it makes it more difficult for everyone else to park. But again, if theirs was a more legitimate reason for her needing the spot, then it would be left open for her. Lastly, yes, I am a female and willing to be confrontational. I will leave the spot open for her sometimes, but I'm not going to go out of my way to always leave it open just because she's always had it like that for 4 years. Down in the comments, Chapter 2 says, you're not the a-hole, but if everyone has their parking spot they've been parking in for 4 years, then it would go a very long way with neighborly goodwill to park in the next spot. It doesn't sound like it would take much to be kind here, and being that you all live with shared walls, it might be worth the effort. Redditor 191389 says, no a-holes here. You can park wherever you like, but she's hardly being an asshole by sending you a polite note just asking you to park in a different spot. Further down in the comments, Nathan7776 says, no a-holes here. I don't think you'd be an a-hole for either refusing her request, since it seems rather trivial, or just parking a spot over. I don't think she is an a-hole for asking either. If she has some form of disability or mobility issues, It could be an understandable request. I'd talk to her rather than leaving a note and just see why she wants to have the space. And that's all for today. Feel free to share whether you agree with the verdicts down in the comment section. Also, let me know what other subreddits you want me to cover. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until the next video, bye bye.